Kia ora, Jodi.
Kia ora.
Mark.
Jodi.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. And this is Tarek,
Yep.
your rescue dog.
Yep.
And we're here at your amazing, beautiful farm, Roebuck Farms. And I saw on the way in, Agrarian Solutions.
Yeah, well, agrarian innovation.
Innovations.
But same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Same
innovations.
thing.
I like that. It rolls off the tongue nicely, eh?
Yep.
Agrarian Innovations. So you're like a agrarian innovator.
Pretty much, and I guess, well, it's a pretty exciting time to be in agriculture right now.
Yeah.
There's lots of innovation going on.
And when I asked you how would you like to be introduced, you said a farmer. I like that. Beautiful, simple.
Easy.
Yeah, easy. So this is my first time here, so I'm still checking it out and going, wow, this is really cool. But as I understand it, you grew up as a townie.
Yep.
Is that right? Where was that?
So we're in Taranaki, New Plymouth now. We're in Omata. I grew up in Fitzroy, 5 blocks from the beach.
Oh, sweet.
Surfed my heart out during my teenage years.
Yeah.
Kept me clean and healthy, and that's where observation began.
Observation of what?
Just everything.
Yeah.
But a good question. But just observation.
Yeah.
And Dad, when I was 13, so I'm just turning 48. So Dad taught me how to read the weather map when 5 to 7, channel 1, there's only 2 channels.
Yeah.
You got 5 minutes a day to see what the weather's doing, because you're going to plan when the surf's going to be good. Then you got the tides, driven by the moon, big tides, storms, sandbanks, offshore winds, seconds between the swells. So you got to line everything up to have a nice surf.
Yeah, you do, eh? And
Yep.
so you started in town, grew up in town, but obviously had this connection and this understanding and this awareness handed down to you of the patterns of nature and the processes that form our earth. And is that how you kind of moved from an urban lifestyle into somewhere like this? Is that what?
It was definitely agriculture that brought me rural. So I went to boys' school, and then
Yeah, boys' high?
yeah, big family of tradespeople. Wasn't going to apprentice with none of them. I was black sheep, and I went to design school for 4 years, and then just needed work and begun in conventional agriculture for 4 years.
Yeah.
Repetitive, good systems, but wasn't using my body well, and was really unwell in the early 20s. So I was, strawberry picking, apple picking, stone fruit, just
On orchards and
yeah,
stuff?
large scale repetition.
Yeah.
And good, developed a good work ethic. And then in 2000 this was a big change for me, I began a 2-year apprenticeship with Koanga Gardens growing heritage vegetable seeds. So we're growing a family of vegetables right through until they produce seed, but half the vegetables cross-pollinate and half don't, so you've got to do family planning, and then the whole way along it's all about selection. So we're getting rid of characteristics before pollination so that we can save the seed off these varieties that are the best from the past for the future.
So is that kind of like a natural genetic engineering almost? You're like an engineering, like you say.
So there's natural plant breeding and selection for sure. And so a good point, one thing is we can, in 95 years, in 100 years of agriculture, we've lost 94% of our cultivars.
Cultivars for the folks at home?
Cultivars as a variety.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we lost all these varieties. That's not the bad news though, because we can breed them back, and we can cross them. Not engineering, just naturally cross them and then select them each year, and stabilise them again. So basically, they become true to type. And so in 7 years, no big fancy stuff, just selection, maybe some insect nets, you can create new cultivars. So this tomato behind us is grown in Fitzroy Beach by Mr. Bolton. He's 94, he's been grown at 45 years.
And that's what you were saying about the heritage stuff, eh?
Yep.
Heritage seeds.
Yep.
So can you explain that, heritage seeds?
Yeah, it's just really food with the story, and it's if it's very successful, tastes good, productive, disease resistant, high yielding, then we obviously want to keep it for the future. And so if we don't save the seed off it, well, we've lost it.
And why would we be losing heritage seeds?
Mass scale commercial industrialisation, genetic engineering, and the works. And less people are growing food these days. There's less farmers because they're typically large scale. But the good news is really you can cross-pollinate them naturally and grow larger populations and select back and even create new cultivars, new varieties. So that was the work. I took that work on in 2000, and in my 20s I was hanging out with 80-year-olds, and so
that would have been cool.
It was cool, but I was very young to have that interest, and
you would have been like a heritage seed yourself, pretty much, wouldn't you, with hanging out with those dudes?
Yeah, I think they were the heritage, and so I really value all farmers. That's a great thing about agriculture, there's something to learn off everyone. And so Kay Baxter was the first permaculturist in the world to really bring back productivity in the permaculture model, and she switched to garden styles in '98 to basically the French intensive market gardening, which has a lot of history and very intensive, and she found that as the perfect model for producing heritage seed. And the guy who wrote and studied that for forever, 50 years, nearly 60, is John Jevens from California. So when my wife was pregnant with our first daughter, I did a 7-month internship with him on his farm in California. And then we brought our farm, and there was nothing on it in '04, with the view of setting up to grow heritage vegetable seed. So we're on 7 acres, we've got a ridge, a valley floor, and we're 20 metres above the river, which comes off the Porco. And we're in a sun trap.
Yeah, it's beautiful here, eh?
We miss all the prevailing westerlies, so we chose the site for those aspects. We knew this in 1975, they cut all the topsoil off our valley floor, whammed it over the hill. So we started on a very compact mountain ash subsoil. Right. But there's a saying, you can't change your aspect. We're not going to bulldoze our 7 acres, but you can change your soils. And so we started, my background's hardcore sustainability. We started out for the first 10 years, never brought nothing in. And even in our pastures, we've never planted seed, but with the gardens, we made huge amounts of compost. We're very sensitive about our bed prep, no tillage, but we use forks just to lift the soil. So our garden beds are now 400 to 600 mils deep from the very initial preparation we did. And we've put 300 mils of homemade compost on the farm since. And we're now half an acre of really intensive production. And when I say intensive, our paths are tiny. The whole market garden is beds, it's not path space. I'm not going down the middle of every path on a ride-on lawnmower. And so for 10 years, it was pretty much a veganic garden. We didn't use inputs, we didn't use manure. I was vegetarian. I was really good at growing heritage vegetable seeds. I was no good at selling it.
Different business, is it? Selling to growing?
Absolutely, and it's a big part of the business. And so I had, in my house, I had this big bank of seed that I'd worked on for 10 years. Some of our cultivars now we've been growing 20 years. I'll make it clear, we don't grow seed on the market garden from everything we produce, but we still do produce seed. And we'll come back to this during our talk, but we will bring the seed model back to the business model. So to improve the soil, public enemy number one is bare soil, so we use covers. We've always used these green shade nets on the ground to germinate seed under. Protects the soil that's seeded from heavy rains, winds, harsh sun. And as we develop the market garden, we use insect nets over crops to keep insects off. Also stops the southerly we had on Monday or heavy rain. So farming with fabrics is a really good way it's insurance, but also to look after your soil. And so we just built the soil up and did a lot of cover cropping.
So you mentioned before that part of the problem has been intensive tilling of the earth, and it's basically put all that carbon from the soil into the atmosphere, which is why we're having trouble. So how did you bring carbon in and put it in the soil? How did you do that?
So plants sequester carbon when they grow to maturity. So in the off season, we grow year round, but in the off season, we used to grow a cocktail mix of the plants that grow the fastest, the tallest, and also put the most amount of root material into the ground.
Wouldn't it be weeds?
Weeds?
Wouldn't that be weeds?
Oh, weeds
They grow the fastest and the tallest.
Well, they can.
Do they sequester soil carbon?
I'm sure a weed does.
Yeah.
But it's got to grow to plants got to grow to maturity to sequester carbon.
Right.
You cut tall green grass and let it dry. It looks brown, but it's not sequestered.
Right.
So the seed model's perfect for if you want to look at sustainability. Everything goes vertical as it flowers and produces seeds. So you've got a big, like a corn stalk, a lettuce even produces a stem. Everything flowers, it's good for the biology of the insects, and then you collect their seed off it. It could be a good business model too. We never got there. And so one rye plant can have 3 miles of root hairs. So if you deepen we call it deep living soils. If you deepen your soil and then plant these, a cocktail mix of, let's say, rye, barley, wheat, vetch, lupin, field pea, you name it, mustard, all in there together, let it get massive, and then back in the day we would pull all of that out, compost it, and we do a cool composting process like nature does with lots of carbon in it. So the temps don't get above 50 or 60 Celsius. We do turn it, and then it takes about that recipe takes about 9 months to be ready, and that's how we have built up our fertility on the soil. Moving forward, we started also introducing manure. We created our own animal systems, and I guess every year we're producing more food from the same land, and we'll come back to that with the market garden and the business model.
Yeah, cool. So you mentioned before that when your wife was pregnant, you went and studied in California.
Yep.
You also mentioned Canada. You spent some time there, or
Yep.
Yeah, and Bali. You've been to Bali, and so all these places around the world. Could you tell us some of your experiences there and like how that's informed what you're doing?
Yep, sure. So I think the simplest place to start is I really believe humans need a crisis before we come across our innovation. That's unfortunately how we are.
Yeah, for great people to come to the fore, we need a crisis, I think, hey? We're too apathetic to do it otherwise.
Yeah. When hand needs to be forced.
Luckily, we've got a few.
Yeah. So the thing that fascinates me the most is the really dry climate parts of the world, and so we're in the wet part of the world. Right here, we've got 2.3 metres of rain a year. Our Monga just here in 1998 got 10 metres of rain. People just don't believe me, or they think it's utopia when I go to places like Victoria, New South Wales, North California. 1 year California had 330 mil of rain. We get that nearly every month of the year. So I just want to talk a bit about the animal systems because that's going to highlight a few things that we're doing. But the most gobsmacking thing I've seen in agriculture is in the dry land where it's like scorched earth, North California, Victoria, and where people have, so historically, generationally, it's been run down, whether it's constant tillage, whether it's constant low grazing to the floorboards till there's nothing left, till you've got to take all your animals off because there's nothing for them to eat, not just this week, but long term. So the people that have taken on mimicked nature with animal systems are just doing phenomenal work in some of the driest parts of the world. And so I've been on a ridge in North California in the peak of summer, in the 5th year of drought. Rivers that I've worked in California 20 years now, rivers that I know well there. Last trip in 2015 there, they're dry, they're bone dry. There's not even a puddle. From being from Taranaki, that was full on to see. I've seen those rivers over 15 years. So what people have done by mimicking nature with the animals is mobbing them and moving them, and they're followed by birds. So there's a big recovery, but at that mobbing stage, where they're there for a very short time on a recovered pasture, nature's model is disturbance, rest, succession. So that initial disturbance, which could be for half a day or a day, and then moving on, so they're treating a tiny bit of their landscape, let's say every day, and then staying off it, and the seed banks in the ground, it's germinating, everything's coming away magic. They're basically trampling down mulch with their herbivores, so they're mulching the landscape, which keeping the soils cooler. The opposite with conventional tillage, constant tillage, is we've simplified our soils. The carbon's gone up there and the soil temps have lifted. So this just blew me out. And we'd been practicing this here in a wet climate. Also, one interesting thing about New Zealand is we don't have predators to drive our herbivores like the rest of the world. So that I began being asked to travel the world to teach my gardening skills, and through all the connections I had, I was working with some of the most progressive graziers worldwide on my days off between. So I kind of lost my gardening mojo because I was just fascinated with the grazing systems and how much landscape we can treat and heal.
I think that's an interesting point that you make, because I don't think people, like when they think about gardening, they don't think about that farming animals, you know, and that. Can you explain a little bit, because you're obviously doing it on a micro sort of scale here, how are those farming systems working for you?
Sure, so with our grazing?
Yeah, with your grazing.
Yep. So first I'd just like to point out that historically it's the pastoral land that has supported our annual agriculture. You know, people used to take manure from the cities back out to the fields, and then the food would come back to the cities, so there's the loop. So with our grazing work, and I've done a lot of study with others, some of the most, you know, Joel Salatin of Polyface Farm is one, and most of these people over time have gone from mentor to friend. So that's kind of been a pattern. Let's talk about some of the things we're achieving on the farm with the grazing. So we've never planted a seed, but because of the impact rest, we're seeing that we've got 16 species in our pasture now, including the strawberry clover, not really seen in Taranaki. We've never had any need for fertiliser. Nature doesn't have an aeroplane with a, you know, or a urea truck.
Just lots of birds.
Yep, and also it's carbon and it's organic matter. So by trampling the grass, with the grass we have in Eden, or the bottom part, we're creating contact with the soil. Earthworms are eating it, taking it down. We're holding moisture in the landscape. We're grazing on a taller pasture, so we've got a larger root system. So drought doesn't affect us as much. There's no such thing as runoff, flood, and some of the numbers, we can produce a 20 kg prime lamb by Christmas. We're grazing our sheep to twice the age. Most farms are selling ewes at 5 because their teeth have worn out from chewing down low continually. We're grazing our sheep till they're 13. We match.
So you're doubling the age of your stock.
Yep.
Just by doing that kind of grazing.
Yep. We have no facial eczema, even though Taranaki has one of the highest facial eczema spore counts known. But the spore count is in the bottom and the crown of the grass, so we're not forcing our sheep to eat down there. Because we're standing on a residual or a trampled grass, no foot problems. We do time shearing to keep them free of fly strike. It's a zero input model. Wow. And gone from vegetarian to following the Western A price diet. And although the sheep, we've grazed up to about 120 sheep, but I've bred them and I've grazed the neighbourhood. So I've bred my sheep on other people's land, and now we've got 30 breeders in each year, all their children. So it's our diet and our farm trainees. It's a huge part of our diet, along with the vegetables we produce. Plus, we have a zero waste policy, and there's lots of ways we achieve that, but one is we trade. So people come here and they go, "Where's your mushrooms? Where's your orchard? Have you got pigs?" I would like to have some pigs, but you can't do it all. Yeah. If you're self-sufficient, you'd be a hermit. You wouldn't have a mate. So we've got lots of mates, and so we now got a year-round fast vegetable business, and in summer we do the long season stuff. We supply 9 restaurants, 3 retail stores, and 1 supermarket, and we're 52 weeks of the year in production. So how do we create zero waste? It's very simple. We've got,
Can I just ask a question about the grazing? Do the animals rear their own young? So
Yep. So we no intervention at lambing time. So we're about 170% lambing rate. Yes.
So your flock is growing.
It is. We're actually managing it. We'd need to take on more leases if we want to increase the numbers, but yeah, they always are.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's good. Learnt home butchery, and we also use really big on low stress stock handling. So people call me sheep whisperer, which is low stress stock handling should be the norm.
Yeah.
So Mark, if I turn you into an animal now,
yeah. But
do you want to be a cow? You're a sheep.
I'm a sheep.
Nice.
But
You
whisper to me, Jodi.
well, I don't whisper. This is how simple it is, so that you can have a good life with me.
Yeah.
Instead of me treating you like,
a unit.
Yep. So your shoulder's the magic point, and behind you, you've got pretty good vision like this, but you can't see your tail. So your tail is the point where the predator, you can't see if the predator's there. Yeah. So now it's counterintuitive, is that the right word?
Counterintuitive, yeah.
If I want to move you, and because I'm going to be nice here, I'm going to give you fresh food every day.
Oh, awesome.
Instead of leaving you in the same paddock.
Yeah, that'd be good.
For your whole life.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I leave you in the paddock for your whole life, you're going to eat all of the nice stuff until it disappears.
Right down to the soil.
Yeah,
right
and then it's gone, and then all the untasty stuff, that's all you got for the rest of your life. Or your boss might come in and spray it, because it becomes a problem. When I let you hang out with all your peers,
Yeah.
and we mob and move you, you go into a salad bar this high with 100 buddies.
And my babies.
And your babies.
Yeah.
And your wife.
Yeah.
And you go into that salad bar, and because there's so much diversity, but also you're at high density, suddenly you don't selectively graze, you non-selective graze. And so you eat a bit of everything evenly. Massive management tool.
Yeah.
So we don't need to spray nothing, we never have. Weeds are food. Broadleafs, sheep love it. They love seed heads, they love flowers. So suddenly you can manage your land without, the conventional inputs. So back to moving. So
I want to be a sheep on your farm, Jodi.
I reckon you'd be a good one. So my main job now is not drenching, doing all of the crazy stuff that conventionals do. My main job is just moving you every day, and the conventionals think, what? That's got to be work. Here's the low stress stock handling 101.
Yeah.
So rather than being behind you and hollering and yelling and forcing you forward,
Dog, yeah.
and I'm in the predator position.
Yeah.
Dog's a predator too.
Yeah.
If I want you to move forward, and because I move you all the time, you let me get quite close.
Yeah. Well, I like you.
Some people have a scratch.
You give me lots of food. And
Do you want a scratch?
give us a scratch.
Okay, you're good. So I've got about half a dozen sheep. They're not pets, but that's how much they trust me.
Yeah.
And so because that's called the flight zone, if I do come into your space, you're not happy, you'll turn. So as I come into your shoulder, I walk past it, and it just like a conveyor belt drives you forward.
Oh, yeah.
So now I can get you on the trailer. Actually, when you see my trailer, you're going to think, I'm going to get on it first.
Yeah, I've got to be there.
Because we're going somewhere
The
good.
rest of these sheep can follow.
And so that's how easy it is to turn an animal, whether you're close or a long way away.
So that sounds like an actual personal relationship, eh?
It's absolutely
Yeah,
personal. I'm spiritually connected to my animals.
Cool, man.
Yeah. I care for them. I make, I never mistreat them. And then the main thing is that I lead them. I've got to be alpha.
Yeah.
And that's a call, and just take off ahead of them, and they basically,
What a cool way of looking at it, bro. What a cool way of doing it.
it's pretty nice. And then the animal systems, the manure is a key input for us, always has been for our food production. And also, before we come into the market garden, historically the market gardens, before we had all this modern tech, let's say you got 7-acre market garden, 1/7 of the market garden you would put back into pasture, because pasture feeds the soil, and then you would that would be part of your rotation. So that's been done, you know, for millennia. So grass is not the demon; it's how we're managing it. You know.
So how do you think market gardening is tracking in New Zealand and globally?
It's super exciting. I got my finger on the pulse with it, and I've been able to work with some of the world's leading market gardeners. Did you know there is such a thing as market garden rock stars?
Yeah, I would believe that.
So the two most famous ones, Jean-Martin Fortier, the market gardener in Quebec, and Curtis Stone, the urban farmer in British Columbia.
Yeah.
They're kind of next gen, they're in their 40s.
Yeah.
I've worked with them, and then the old guru, there's many, but Elliot Coleman, the godfather of market gardening, he's in Maine, and Elliot went to a very cold climate. He went through France researching, you know, because historically the French intensive market gardeners had it down pat before we had all these new tools. And then all the R&D and development has been done pretty much in North America, California over the last 30 years with small tools like, we've got a greens harvester that runs off a battery drill, so we can cut our microgreens or our baby mustard, baby rocket. We can cut like 10 square meters in literally 5 minutes. What else? They've got precision seeders, so you can, it's like a 10-speed bicycle, you can change the cogs, change out your seed wheel, and you can plant any size seed at any spacing you want. So you're not making a furrow and doing this anymore. Saves you time, saves your seed. We've got a baby tilther. It's a plough that's this big, runs off a battery drill, just as surface cultivation. These tools really have made it possible to make a living off a small area. And so these guys travelled, we've always been involved with education. These guys travelled New Zealand about 5 years ago, and we hosted them, looked after them like royalty, took them surfing, fed them well, and they invited us, you know, to work on their farm. So I did, and basically came back, hit the ground running. And
when was that?
2016, yep. And I went back 2018. So yeah, this movement's is just going leaps and bounds, like new tiny tools coming out all the time. But not only that, with social media or working on farms with people, I'm seeing the innovation coming from people realizing, hey, not only can I use this tool for harvesting greens in the field, I can use it for harvesting microgreens. We've got a jacuzzi for washing our salad. We're producing off the same land more food and making more income each year.
Passion transfer, right, is a big part of what we're trying to do at GSNZ, at Green School New Zealand, learning from our community. You mentioned some of those rock star gardeners.
Market gardeners, yeah.
Market gardeners. So what did you learn from them, and what did you bring back to here, and how did you make this viable?
Cool. So the first gardener that things really changed for me was in 2000 with Kay Baxter. And that led
Where's she from?
She was in Kaiwaka, now she's Wairoa.
Yep.
So she's New Zealand's old-fashioned heritage seed saver. The method she was using was created by John Jevens, so I went and studied with him. And when we bought our property, that was a big part of my experience. And we got set up, and I was also working off, we had young children. I worked caregiving, I worked at New Zealand Post, I worked decorating, landscaping, worked for an architect, and then took my 5-year-old to rural school, met the local farmers, and one of them taught me to fence. Then I could fence on farm as another income revenue. So transitioned from off-farm income to farm-related work. I was, fencing, calf dehorning, teaching gardening all around the world, upskilling with more grazing, and just making really good connections. And the rockstar farmers are pretty quick to introduce you to other rockstar farmers and so on.
So that community thing, you've mentioned that a couple of times. It's like you're learning from each other, but at the same time you're developing a friendship and a relationship, like you do with your sheep.
Pretty much. I'm not the. I know you like my sheep. So yeah, it's you can fast track your learning. So here's a couple of key things that both Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, and Jean Martin Fortier say, and they both worked on other people's farms. Especially, I'll call Jean Martin JM.
Yeah.
So JM, I think he went to Cuba. He worked there for a season. I'm pretty sure he did some time at Alec Coleman's farm, and he then brought his property, developed from scratch in Quebec, acre and a half, got to a point where he's turning over $150,000. And also, he wrote a book, some made movies, and he's doing tool development. One thing JM identified, I think that's really key, is the one thing that you don't have in farming. And Mark, I asked what it is. What do you think is the one thing that we don't have on the farm?
On this farm?
All production. Could be your backyard vegetable garden, my farm. What's the one thing you don't have on the farm?
You put me on the spot. I would say business nous.
That's one thing I didn't have.
Yeah.
Good call. But people say things like, mushrooms, orchard, tractor, sprays. And they're all good answer. But I'll tell you the answer. The one thing you don't.
Tell me the answer.
The one thing you don't have is time.
Oh, yeah, right, got you.
And as soon as you acknowledge that, you become looking at making things more lean, more efficient. We've been following Toyota manufacturing principles, the lean manufacturing. My joke is that our half acre of production, we've got the most wheels in the world. And that's a big part on how we're doing a better job of caring for the soil and making income off the same area.
You were talking about that research and development that has been happening in California for over the last 30 years. Surely all those innovations and tools and that give you time, though. Surely they give you time back.
So do you want to be cutting 10, 20 square metres of greens like with a knife each morning, or do you want to just mow them down with a blade on front of it that's and like ropes that throw it into a catcher?
The latter.
Do you want to be in a barrel like this for 6 hours a day, pushing greens around, or do you want to pull the switch on the jacuzzi?
I want to pull that switch on the jacuzzi.
I know you want to get in there. So it's all the little detail, and so there's some key tools, principles, cover soil at all times, but then it's the little details that make a big difference. So JM's, I've trained with him twice, and just to see and work in their production was super inspiring. And Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, third of an acre, probably the world's most influential figure in the market garden movement, and he's a goer, and he's got a real sharp brain. Follows the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, and he just tracked what he was doing, and he worked out that 80% of his income came from 20% of his crops, 80% of his income came from 20% of his customers, and so he developed a crop rating value for his production, and he had 90 crops. He got it down to 18 year-round fast crops, and one of the key things is fast days to maturity.
Right, so that touches on, because we're big on entrepreneurship as well, right?
Yeah, he's a total entrepreneur.
Yeah, so, and I get the feeling that you've grown into that role as well.
Yeah.
So how did you start, and how did you make that journey into an entrepreneur rather than a farmer? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
how did that happen?
So I just want to quickly jump in. I made a radio program in 2012, interviewed a bunch of farmers across all sectors, and they all said the same three things. Harder I work, luckier I am. Keep it simple, stupid. And I forget the third one at the moment, but there's no such thing as luck. So I just got myself over to their farms. I've got a family and a farm to run here, and upskilled, and then came back and hit the ground running. And also I have mentors, I mentor. I had a bunch of people here working with us. Curtis Stone said to me, I'll come back and run a 4-day masterclass if you get set up. So pretty much in 100 days we set up all these skinny beds, the washroom, and this is JM's clarification, 40% or more of your work on the market garden is harvest, post-harvest. You might be a good grower, getting it out the ground and washing and packing it is 40% of the work. And that doesn't even include actually building the relationships in the market space. You can grow a heap of stuff and you can't sell it, that's called waste. You might as well get some pigs. But if you've got, I'll come back to it, but we've grown our outlet space to the point where we have actually surpassed Curtis Stone's income that he took 8 years to get to, and we passed him in our 3rd year. And bless him, we wouldn't have been there without his support.
So you mentioned kind of fast-growing crops.
Yep.
You mentioned developing relationships with businesses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, every business is a family business. Even the supermarket.
Well, I don't get that.
They're people, they're families. Our families are shopping there. I'm not being criticising you, but yeah, we did. People are the key part of our business being successful in relationships. Yeah. So we did this 100-day working bee with 5 helpers. We doubled the size of the garden. We built the washroom, and we're spending money on getting set up. And my biggest fear was, how are we ever going to sell this? Yeah. We knew our fast 18 crops that we can do year round were going to be the driver to make an income off a small area. So by the way, well, with the fast crops, the people say, oh, you must have heaps of spreadsheets and plan. And I say, no, we just need to understand how long our fast crops are currently taking to grow. So if it goes in a tray in the greenhouse, put painter's tape on it, like a microgreen. The day we plant it, we just write the date on it. The day we harvest it, we've got a whiteboard, we track. And so basically, indoor crops take twice as long to grow in winter, and outdoor crops take 2.5 times longer to grow in winter. So if you don't know how long it's taking, there's your successions and your consistency gone. Quality's important, strong brand's important, but so in the washroom we've got the farm, the map of all the garden beds. Each has got a number. The day we plant, or direct seed or transplant, we write it on there with a marker, the date and the crop. If we're direct seeding, we weigh the seed so we know exactly how much we've put in. And then on harvest day, first harvest, we're going to the washroom anyway, we look on there and we track those key 18 crops.
So it's keeping it simple. Tracking it.
Yeah. So the goal in holistic management is to manage diversity as simply as possible.
You mentioned your brand.
Yeah.
And you mentioned those relationships and how important they are to be a good entrepreneur. How have you promoted your brand? Have you just done that organically? Have you just done that through talking to people, through all your experiences? Because I know who you are and I've never met you before. Yeah. And I'm not a particularly big gardener. Yeah. I have a garden, but Jodi Roebuck, I know Roebuck Farms. Yeah. So how did that happen? So
we've become, what is the saying, small farm, big impact. We won 4 awards. 500,000 people saw us on Country Calendar. I've worked on all the top grazing, orchard, market garden farms around the world. And I just, made friends, made it happen, put my time to it, and applied it here. But there's been a few key things along the way, and at that period we were setting up with the market garden. And the question was, how are we going to sell this? That winter, when I should have spent money on our walk-in chiller, we employed a local man from Okura. He's from South Africa originally, called Craig Hattle. And at the time I was like, I know we need to build a walk-in chiller. He coached us for 12 months and basically pushed us into retail. He was also coaching Egmont Seafoods, the only independent fishery between Auckland and Wellington, 30-year family business, 26 staff. So they brought us a fridge, we started supplying them, and that was our first retail outlet. Then we got our first restaurant, then we took on Vitro, the Mediterranean supermarket, more restaurants, Social Kitchen, I can see them on my truck, Monica's, Shining Peak, Novotel, Whangamongama Hotel, and here's this, because I'm really big about principles and patterns. I was told by a market gardening mentor years ago, don't go into the restaurants with your product and give it to them. And we did anyway. Not one of those.
Why would he tell you that?
Because it didn't work for him.
Oh, it didn't work for him. Yeah.
So I went to all these restaurants, gave them all our products, not one of them is on our books. One of my Australian mentors, Darren Doherty, the world's leading farm planner and educator, just a phenomenal man. And he also made a film everyone needs to watch called Polyfaces. I've studied with him for a long time, now he's a close friend. Whenever I was talked to him about, my struggle, it was never, I'm working too hard. It was always about the odd human that just sweeps me off my feet. He always told me to row my own boat, but he also said, I asked him about his business model, and he said, mate, we just go where we're invited. When I listened, I took that on and everything changed. So all Country Calendar, all our retail stores, all our restaurants, Pack and Save, you guys, everything that comes in front of us is that's how it happens.
Yeah.
So how do we make this happen? We've never advertised. We don't do any advertising. We don't sponsor ads on social media. We've created a strong brand I spent 15 years working internationally with some key people. I make small movies. I do put them on social media. We also are content makers. We're educators.
Where can we find those movies, Jodi?
All our content is on the media page of our website, which my wife made, Roebuck Farm. So there's webinars, Country Calendar, the whole thing.
Yeah, cool.
And so I'll come back to retail and how that grew. And how the market gardens become financially successful, but I just lost my train of thought. I guess the working with others all around the world was how I gained perspective. I think 2016 I was eight trips, 3.5 months away, and people are flying me around the world. I'm meeting people at the forefront of modern agriculture. People say, what do you do on your holidays? I say, farming. My only time out, we're Sundays off, but my only time out is just getting in the water and going for a surf.
Yeah.
At night I read grazing books. And I'm reading The Lean Farm. It's a book of market gardening about making your market garden more lean.
Yeah. So it's in your blood. It's in your core now.
Elliot Coleman.
It's who you are.
Sure, Elliot Coleman, the old guru market garden. He's 82. When I worked on his farm. Retired. 5:30 a.m. first one out farming. So farmers are great company. So people say, oh, you're travelling, you must get rental cars and book hotels, and I say I've never done either of them.
To get picked up from the airport.
Get picked up by a farmer, eat some good food, homebrew, show me what they're doing. We bounce off each other. They drop me up further up the line to the next farm and so on.
Man, I love that philosophy.
It's been awesome.
I love that philosophy that basically everything that you've grown through relationships with people and good people. Absolutely,
and that's what's become our brand. And after 4 years of graphics, I finally did our logo, and it's the wrong word. I'll say it's a low frame score sheep, but in an easy way, it's a muscle sheep.
Yeah.
And birds follow herbivores in nature, and also there's a history in here. Coming home, I was the black sheep of the family. Now I'm the rock star of the family. I'm doing the eulogy for my beautiful uncle next weekend for a huge family, and see, I ain't the black sheep anymore. So the font is from, I built it. It's from Sears and Jackson, 1880s, first distribution company in New York.
Oh yeah, the same font.
I just built it from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool because you think about Roebuck Farms, you think about, I think about vegetables.
Yep.
And the branding has got that grazing animal that you're talking about, and how is that deliberate?
Yeah, it is. This is, I think it's a big part of what we do, huge for our landscape management and our diet. And it also represents I think one of the most sustainable landscapes is, you know, the savanna or the Serengeti. This is challenging. I'd like to see the Aotearoa savanna. Just huge, widely spaced puriri, kauri, rimu, with, you know,
Take me there,
big mobs of cattle and sheep, and huge, diverse grasses with birds, insect life, butterflies.
Sing it, brother.
It all belongs together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
that's massive vision, eh?
yeah.
Dream that.
Yeah. So our tree light up, we graze everywhere. We undergraze our trees. I planted everything on the property. So we've got a third of an acre with mature trees up here, widely spaced, pasture underneath them. I put one sheep in there for 100 days, take all the bark off the trees. That's not nature's model though. I put 100 sheep in there for one day. They eat half the grass, trample the rest. They underprune the trees perfectly, like the arborists have been, and it's, you know, it's all in balance.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about that natural nature's model.
Yeah.
Is that so?
That's what drives me, and I guess I think also a lot of one of the grazing platforms is called holistic management, and that's actually, you know, comes from, you know, how nature does grazing, but what they've identified is actually a decision-making platform. That's what they call it, fancy word, but decision-making is key on what we're doing, and I'm always looking for optionality. So, for example, we grow coriander. We direct seed it. It grows super easy for us. We've got a great market for it, but I can harvest it and wash it and store it, and it's great for 2 weeks. So there's my optionality. Well, it works for us, but I've got 12 days to market it. Whereas basil, I've got to propagate it, plant the seed, prick it out, transplant it out, hand harvest it, and I've got 6 hours to sell it before it goes black in the chiller. So we ain't going basil. So
you were talking about those 18 fast-growing crops?
Yeah.
Can you rattle them off?
Sure. The fastest are microgreens.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're growing that in the Tropo house at the moment with Tobias.
We do pea shoots outdoors. So microgreen, we'll talk summer as fast as they get. In summer, microgreens 6 days, pea shoots 12 days, baby mustard 18 days, radish 30 days. What else are we doing that's fast?
Lettuce, surely.
Yeah, lettuce. But lettuce is longer.
Yeah.
But it's still fast. Tokyo turnips 42 days.
Tokyo turnips.
Yeah, it's fast. And so really,
carrots quite slow, eh?
Yep, carrots about 90 days. We've got a really good market for them though. But here's the thing about the fast crops, and now the year-round veggies take 2.5 times longer in winter. That means in winter, to keep up with your same volumes or supply, you need 2.5 times the area, 2.5 times longer. So in summer, you can do those big volumes just in one unit of space, so you go all the rest of the farm to grow all the longer season stuff. Easy, eh?
Yeah.
Yep.
So for the average gardener like myself, what are some tips that you would give the average garden punter?
Cover your soil at all times.
Yeah.
Yep. 70% shade net, we call that mobile mulch. You germinate underneath it.
Yeah.
Hoops, you can put any fabric on those. You can put insect net, that's for insects, heavy rain, strong wind. You could put bird netting on that, you could put plastic on it as a greenhouse, and start with the fast crops. So because they go fast, you learn more and you're more consistent, and you can start to see things get faster in summer and
you
slower
see
in
a
winter.
yield, I guess, as well.
Yeah. Like start a microgreen, and in 6 days you'll be like, wow, I'm ready to eat it. Yep.
Cool, so that's 2. You got another one?
Okay, so cover your soil, fast crops, track the days to maturity.
Track the days to maturity, so just keep a log.
Yeah, just make get a bit of whiteboard, draw your garden on it, and just write every time you put something in, seed or transplant, and then on harvest day,
and then you're constantly getting that data, you're constantly improving your own systems, and wow, cool.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Cheers. And so the other part that I just want to kind of bring back in is the people that we're working with, because no business background over here. just turning 48. It's the last 5 years that I've, focused on the business. I really wish it was mandatory at school. A bit of accounting, a bit of business studies.
Yeah.
You could have a toenail painting company.
Yeah.
But if you've not got a business mojo,
Well, that
you're going to go under.
like I said before, at Green School, we're really pushing that. Last term, our thematic was basically that, becoming an entrepreneur. We had our own little festival sort of market day where the kids all had their own businesses, and we're trying to get them thinking about, what is a niche market, what are my skills, how do I match those things up, and how do I make these connections with the community, like you were just saying. So it's interesting you say, because obviously the last 5 years have been a big part of your growth as a business.
Yep.
Yeah, and
for sure.
So people, I think that's a good point to make. It's like you were like 43 before you sort of clicked.
Yep.
Oh, this is how I make a living out of what I've been doing passionately for 20 or 30 years. Yeah, I think that's just an interesting point to make. It doesn't happen overnight. All that learning, all those connections, all those relationships, all that study came to a point, and then you're like, boom, I get it.
I think in any early business there's a big period of reinvesting, depending on what it is. But we're not shy on reinvesting at the right time for the right things. But we're also very lean in other ways. Like we make all our own fertility, pretty much. We make all our own seed raising mix, pretty much all our own compost. Yet we're happy to invest, like in the washroom. We're always making modifications in there, so on. See, the key thing for us in retail, it's the people, but what we have to be, or what we've realised we are, is we have to be complementary. So we've got all our produce. We can put anything we produce on all of our fridges across town. We've got to be complementary. So you can go to the fish shop, and COVID helped with people wanting to eat local and not being able to go to the supermarket, but you can go to the fish shop, and in summer you can get everything we produce right there. So you've got a meal. You can go to TLC Meats, same thing, and it's a convenient and complementary. So, and the people we're working with, it's just, we make a huge effort. We've got Egmont Seafoods coming out for their Christmas function this year. We do a whole lot of work on social media for them. If we have returns, we give them to their staff. We do just like promotions, giveaways, and the other thing so what we have to be for our retail and our restaurants is, especially the restaurants, they're like a strong brand, but we've got to be quality and consistent. So
brand integrity.
Yeah. And so then along come COVID.
But yeah, talk about that. So that changed people's, I think for me personally, when I got home from my job and it was announced that it was lockdown, the first thing I thought was, how much food have I got?
Yeah.
And are the food supplies going to continue?
Yeah.
And it was that deep-seated, oh my goodness, what if I have to grow my own food? So do you think that's had an impact? Do you think that's had an impact on the way people are gardening at home, or the way people are buying local foods, or do you think it's had an impact?
Yeah, and I think also I'd just like to kind of mention, outside of the food chain, you can support local too, like local business. I say to the market garden movement, like you can buy your tools from the big boys in America, or there's a small family farm, 1 acre market garden in Tasmania that are doing the work for us, importing and redistributing. Put your money where your mouth is. So yeah, people are. So we had first COVID. I'll talk about that, and then back to normal, and then second COVID. As soon as you had to 2 metre isolate at the restaurants, we noticed our retail stores got way busier, which means people are cooking at home again.
Yeah, which is great.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when we went into COVID, we were 3 retail stores, 9 restaurants, and education's a huge part of what we do too. 80% of our education used to be abroad. Now before COVID, 90% of it was at home. People are travelling the world here. And after Country Calendar, that year we did 25 sold out events. So it's a big part of the business. But if we dropped out the education, the market garden's financial too. So we went into lockdown. We refunded a lot of money to people for tickets for education. They couldn't come. We were owed quite a bit from our restaurants, and we didn't know how hurt they were going to be. And my farm trainee Sam and I harvested 14 days straight to the queues of people with masks. And then everything just wound down. By day 5, I got the phone call and we started supplying Pack and Save. And originally we were just not through the food channels, we were just in there. And I just want to say, debit Pack and Save. People kind of demonise the supermarket, but we've got a pretty special supermarket here. Every business, and I don't mean market gardens, every business in town ready for export that got locked down, Pack and Save New Plymouth took up everyone's stuff.
Really?
Whether it's toilet paper, hot cross buns, us, fish from Egmont Seafoods, yeah.
There's a plug.
She need to be the lady on TV at 5 to 7 on Friday night, the person of the week. What she's doing for the community is just massive.
Yeah.
And so we began supplying them on day 5. The first 3 weeks were insane. And this is in April, so the days are getting shorter, so your vegetables taking longer to grow.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of loyalty with our original outlets. So we're like, what happens when COVID passes? We thought we had to go big. 100k greenhouse employees. We've gone right through winter, doing 170% volumes, supplying everyone plus the supermarket, focusing on the fast crops. And I'm going to finish up with this one, tracking the days to maturity, which is super simple. But with the lean principles, one of the key things is your employees should only ever touch the parts of your business that make it lucrative. Everything else is for you to take up the slack on. So since the best thing that happened to us from COVID was my realization that we work 6 days a week. Every day we have to plant and harvest. So 6 days a week over the years, 312 days a year, we're harvest and planting.
So, well, what a special thing that that people come together in the, like you were talking about before, the crisis, and we need to almost to be a catalyst for change. We need some kind of crisis. The story you told about Pack and Save New Plymouth is inspirational because it's people coming together and going, okay, we need to help each other out. So that happened here in New Plymouth. How do you see Taranaki? How do you see the potential for that kind of locally kind of inspired business? How do you see the potential here for that?
Nice question. We thought we were 2 years away from being in the supermarket.
Yeah.
We thought we had to go 3 times as big and so on. And we actually thought we would need financial support to get in there. And we've done this on what do you call it?
Shoestring?
Shoestring, yep. And just reinvested. We went to the food bowl. We told them that this is our plan. The reason we wanted to be in the supermarket was that we wanted all types of local food and small businesses to be able to be not just in our supermarket, but also we want to transform the food, period. And so when we actually got a bit of backlash from my market garden peers because they thought you had to be at the farmers market. So what I'd like to see for Taranaki is I really believe we've got a great growing climate. Occasionally the rain goes away.
Sweet soil.
We have too much. We've got nice soil, beautiful mountain, rivers, oceans. I really believe we need a really strong market space, and I've always joked about calling it the supermarket back in the day. But we need a all-weather, huge venue. Now we've already got them, where we can have a huge market. We've got 100,000 people. We could have the best market. Doesn't have to be called a farmer's market, could be, where everyone's welcome. You can sell your artesian cheese, I can sell my imported Japanese jandals. Everyone welcome. Hundreds of vendors, thousands of shoppers. We don't have that. So we
would love to see that be developed.
Oh, absolutely. We generationally we don't have it. So it's you know, a lot of other small towns in New Zealand have strong market space, and it's got to be for businesses. It's got to be viable to be there. So we were at 2 markets for 2.5 years, and it just wasn't viable for us. We're kind of supporting the goodwill of the local food movement, but we're recognising we can do that anywhere. So I'd love to see that. I really believe our grazing potential here, with our rainfall in our soils, we haven't even scratched the surface. And it's I'm kind of 10 years in now with regen ag and, you know, mob grazing, and because of my experience abroad as well. I came back in 2012 and from the US and Australia, and the whole thing was about regen ag and local food, and neither of those were even a conversation over here. So absolutely the local food movement's here now.
So besides yourself, there's innovators here doing innovative things?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, even you know, if Green Meadows Beef, for example, they're doing some fantastic work. There's more and more Kaitaki Farm. There's more and more businesses. Beach Road Milk.
Yeah.
They've been there 100 years. I always say to Ryan, you got to tell that story, man. Your family's been there for 100 years.
Yeah, cool.
You know.
The neighbourhood farms are Carl Freeman, you know Carl?
Yep, no Carl.
Yeah.
So we've got, and not just in the market garden space, we've got, I can't even pronounce it right, but cured meats. We've got lots of companies doing like cured meats, more raw milk startups. So we've brought over the world's leading natural cheesemaker twice, David Asher. We got raw milk from down the road. People come from all over the world for his 5-day event here, and he made 50 types of cheese. Just blew the house down. We could be the artesian cheese mecca, the grazing
I love
mecca.
cheese. Yeah.
So the potentials we ain't started.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can, if we can dream it, we can do it, right?
We just got to begin. Just got to take the first step, mate.
Yeah. So you were talking about. I just wanted to. It's a little bit off topic, but you're talking about education here.
Yeah.
So, how does one be educated here? How do you do that? Do you host experts that come over and then run workshops, or is that how it runs? How you do it?
I kind of got thrown in the deep end day one at Koanga in 2000. Started on Monday. Got right through my life, never public speaking, never done my English speech. Friday, Kay goes, we've got a tour on the weekend, Jodi, and you're touring everyone. And I was like, oh, hang. So that's where the education began for me, and I took on the responsibility of the seeds. And so always been involved in education, just got busier and busier with it. The travelling went insane. I got to a point where every time I heard a plane go over, I felt like I was at the airport. It was a amazing experience to see and meet the people that I did. So I've just absorbed it all, applied it. For quite a while we did have other people coming through the farm. We had the market gardeners, cheesemaker, we had a Western A Price teacher come through, but mainly I was going away teaching. And probably the last 4 years at home, I'm the one doing the education. People have been travelling the world to come here. It's a super intensive practical, and I do get pretty upset I get asked by the tertiary providers to do the practical parts of their training, and I really want to say to them, I really want to see not this model, but a working model that's viable for their students to 3D physically work in and be experiential, so that when they purchase their own land, lease land, get started, they've got some business sense, they've got all the practicals, they know the runnings of the farm, not that they've, and I'm going to say it, that they've got a certificate in organics. If you haven't got out the class, so what?
Yeah.
So
it's the same with teaching.
so
You can
not-
learn all the theory,
Yep.
unless you're in the classroom.
So not just Taranaki, New Zealand wide, I'd love to see working models.
Cool.
I've been through all of them. I know what they're like, and and I want to see people surpass what we're doing. I passed Curtis Stone in my 3rd season. Bring it on.
Yeah, cool. So if people want to come here and learn, how do they?
Yep. So firstly, even before they come, there's heaps of content on the media page of a website.
Yeah.
Webinars, interviews like this will probably be on there, country calendar and so on. Then we do a really intensive 2-day practical, so it's a Saturday, Sunday class, where we go through beginning, layout, design, bed prep, composting, greenhouse growing, harvest, pack and wash, how do you develop a market space, all of that stuff.
Cool. Awesome. So it's been a pleasure talking to you, bro. Like, I've learned so much over the last 45 minutes. My head's spinning, actually. I love the scope of your vision, but I also love the practical nature of how you've developed how you've developed your business, how you developed your farm. So you talked about your time surfing as a young fella, learning to read the weather patterns, going through getting orchard picking jobs, up to this place here that you've created this beautiful, amazing business and garden. How do you feel, bro? How do you feel?
I feel life's good. Life's getting better. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'm surfing a bit. I'm super proud of my family. My girls are teenagers now. But I also feel, especially with the education part of things, my job as a teacher is to be a learner. And that's what I enjoy about ag, is there's
keep learning.
Yeah, you just keep learning. The people in our life, I feel pretty blessed.
Oh, bro, I feel blessed to have met you and this time to talk to you, man.
Cheers.
Can I get a hug?
Yeah, bro.
Yes, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Awesome, man. Cheers, bro. Thank you.
Oh, well, hope that was easy.
That's good. Yeah. Fire out, man.